It's been a year since we got married, and it's about time to say goodbye to this lifestyle. It really felt like forever. I'm so done with sharing the same air as Emily. Hearing Jake and Lily's conversation from the living room, I was suddenly startled and caught my breath. Their conversation was something I couldn't just ignore. I quietly concealed myself and listened to their conversation through the gap in the living room door while recording it on my phone. My company's truck is huge. If you get hit by something like that, you would be instantly gone. Everything is ready, we just need the perpetrator to do a good job. Dad, you're the worst. Well, it's not like there was any love from the start. As long as we can live a wealthy life, that's all that matters. Their conversation was chillingly far from what you'd expect in a family discussion. Feeling my whole body shiver, I fled the scene at once. Staying in that house any longer was dangerous. Shaking uncontrollably, I desperately thought about what to do next. My name is Emily, a 35-year-old who works in public relations at a real estate company. I joined the real estate company because my father, Kenneth, who is a wealthy landlord, wanted me to gain knowledge in anticipation of inheriting his properties someday. Thanks to some of my father's advice, I also own some land and apartments, which provide me with passive income. I was placed in the public relations role following a suggestion from my boss, Kevin. I spent my 20s in sales, but I was rotated to public relations to learn the ropes. Both sales and public relations are fulfilling, and I work from early in the morning till late at night. It was the advice from that Kevin over drinks that made me, such a workaholic, start to think about marriage. Emily, you're perfect at your job. So now, you just need to find a kind and loving husband. Kevin suggested with tipsy enthusiasm. Kay, a colleague, responded. That's a compliance violation. Kevin was rebuked and shunned. But I wasn't really upset about it. After all, Kevin was right. I too have a desire to get married. But if I say I haven't had the chance to think about marriage, would that sound like an excuse? Watch me find a wonderful husband. In a spirited response while tipsy, I agreed, though I had no idea that I would have a fiancé within a month. I met Jake at the same bar where I had the conversation about marriage with Kevin. Just 3 days after going out for drinks with Kevin and Kay, I found myself back at the same bar again. It's a popular spot near our office, frequented by most of our company's members. I actually enjoy drinking alone. So there I was, even though it was a Monday, sipping my beer alone. On a Monday night, the chances of running into other team members were slim. It was a strategic move. Hey, are you here alone? Mind if I join? The casual invitation came from a man seated next to me at the bar counter. Yes, sure. I was honestly very surprised. In my life, I've never been approached by a stranger like this. It's probably due to my appearance. To be blunt, I'm not what most would consider pretty. My round face and proportionally small facial features have always been my complexes. Yet here I was, at 35, for the first time in a pub being approached by a man, which was as surprising as it was pleasant. Most women would probably refuse such an invitation, but thanks to the alcohol, I readily agreed. Thanks. I'm Jake. I'm a long-haul truck driver. Nice to meet you. He casually asked for a handshake. Amused by his cheerful demeanor, I took his hand. I'm Emily. I work for a real estate company. Nice to meet you. Maybe I came off a bit formal. But Jake didn't seem to mind and started talking about himself. He asked about my personal life too, and soon I was caught up in his pace. I even ended up sharing that my father is a wealthy man, though I didn't have to. During our conversation, I found out that Jake and I are the same age. Delighted, I ended up sharing things I normally wouldn't with someone I just met. I'm embarrassed to say, I've never been in a relationship with a man before. At first, Jake was taken aback by my words. Why not date me then, he suggested casually, and I was utterly stunned. But come on, think of it as practice. Well, it was a strange turn of events, but at that moment, I was completely drunk. All right then, let's do it. Before I knew it, that was my response. And so, our relationship began just one day after we met. Surprisingly, things with Jake progressed smoothly, and about a month after we met, he proposed. I was shocked, but Jake argued that we're both 35 and it's better to move quickly, so I accepted his proposal without much resistance. I reported this to Kevin. "What? Emily, you're getting married," he exclaimed, almost dropping to the floor in surprise. "That's right. But I'll continue working just as hard." "Is that so?" "Well, congratulations." Was it my imagination, or did Kevin seem a bit down? Regardless, once our marriage was acknowledged by others, it felt like my married life with Jake was just around the corner. 2 weeks after the proposal, we got married. My parents were stunned but pleased with my hasty marriage. Although Jake may seem flippant and frivolous in his manner of speaking, he's actually very amiable and quickly makes friends with anyone. That's probably why my parents liked his character so much. After getting married, I moved into Jake's apartment. It was a small apartment, and honestly, it felt cramped compared to the apartment I lived in alone. "Come on in." I entered his apartment feeling somewhat apprehensive. Then, from the back of the room, I heard footsteps that made me jump. At first, I thought he might have a large dog, but it turned out to be the voice of a young girl. "Is this my new mom?" "Wow. Lily, don't react that way on your first meeting." Lily looked to be either in middle or high school. However, her hair was permed and she wore heavy makeup. She glared at me, who was clearly taken aback. "Oh, sorry. But..." I had a feeling I knew what Lily wanted to say. It was painfully clear that she was disappointed by the sight of a not particularly good-looking woman in her mid-30s entering her home. No, more importantly, what does this mean? I looked at Jake, demanding an explanation. "Ah, this is my daughter. She's 16. I didn't mention it, but I was married once before when I was 18. But really, that doesn't matter, right? Because it's you, Emily, that I love now. Marriage, a daughter." I had no idea. Words can't describe how shocked I was at the time. This could well fall into the category of marriage fraud, but having just married, I was simply overwhelmed and confused by this revelation. "I'm going out with my friends now," Lily said, leaving the scene swiftly. I brooded over the situation. "Emily, make some dinner," Jake requested without giving me a chance to think, pushing me into this distorted married life. Despite the unexpected revelation of Jake having a daughter, upon reflecting more calmly, it didn't seem all that bad. At 35, I might not be able to have my own children, and since Lily is already in high school, it's not like I have to raise her. I tried to look on the bright side as much as possible. However, our marriage life faced other problems. 3 months into our marriage, I started to wonder why Jake and I had not been intimate. We've never been intimate since we got together. We're newlyweds, not a couple that's been married for years. I felt lonely because Jake never approached me romantically. Jake, being a long-haul truck driver, had irregular hours at home. Yet, it's not like our days off never coincided. On his day shifts, we would go to bed together at night. Despite our mismatched life rhythms, the absence of intimacy made me wonder if it was because I was not attractive. After much worry, I mustered up the courage to subtly make a move on Jake. "Sorry, I'm tired, maybe next time." He brushed me off casually. With no experience in relationships, I couldn't press Jake further and went to sleep with my feelings of discontent. Still, I could have endured the lack of intimacy. But the problems didn't stop there. The cause was none other than Lily. As I mentioned earlier, Lily had a very flashy appearance, and her friends were just as loud. I was frequently called to Lily's school by teachers who warned me about the poor behavior of the friends she hung out with. Although the teachers, knowing I was a stepmother, showed some sympathy, Lily's face showed she didn't care if I was scolded in her place. Why was I the one to face this? I was deeply shocked. One day, Lily mentioned she was bringing friends home, and I had a bad feeling about it. When I returned home from work on a Friday night, there was Lily and 3 friends, lounging in the living room with snacks and soft drinks. Of course, they were part of the flashy group she always hung out with. It would have been fine if it ended there, but the floor was littered with snack crumbs, and stains from spilled drink had marked the carpet. The carpet was a recent purchase. I had chosen it carefully, thinking it would be perfect for the start of our married life. I was truly infuriated. "Hello, girls," I said, forcing a smile. And then the nagging words overflowed. "If you spill snacks and drinks, please clean it up properly, will you? You all were the ones scolded at school recently, right? If you don't start changing your attitudes, you're going to face tough times as adults. As an adult, it's my responsibility to discipline these kids." With that in mind, I spoke in what I believed to be a gentle tone. However, none of Lily's friends seemed remorseful after hearing my words. Instead, they looked at me curiously and whispered among themselves. "Is this the famous Emily? Didn't we meet her last time when we were called by the teacher? Oh, was that so? I forgot, we've been called so many times I can't keep track. That's hilarious, and Emily looks so old and unattractive. Why would Lily's dad choose her?" The conversations of Lily's friends were almost unbearable to listen to. Particularly, the words spoken by the third girl somewhat shocked me. I am aware that I am not conventionally attractive. However, it's not something that should be pointed out by my stepdaughter's friends. But getting upset about her words would be immature, so I chose to remain silent instead. "Huh, you can't even respond, that's because you know it's true," Lily added, mocking me further. This made it too painful to stay, and I decided to leave the house for a while. Meanwhile, Lily and her friends continued to laugh raucously, slapping their hands together. Why do I have to be driven out of my own home? I pondered, cursing this unjust situation as I aimlessly wandered outside until Lily's friends had gone home. This kind of life continued for about a year. Jake and I had never been intimate since our marriage. Lily, as usual, did not acknowledge me as her mother, always giving me cold looks. The number of times I was called to the school increased, and eventually, the teachers, exasperated, began to raise their voices at me as if they had forgotten I was a stepmother. "We really need you to provide guidance at home," they would say. This repeated situation must have been frustrating for the teachers too. Each time I was summoned because of Lily, I couldn't help but think, why must I endure this? Yet, my daily life took an unexpected turn towards the end of my marriage. It happened on a Wednesday evening. I had told Lily that I might be late returning home due to a backlog of work from the previous day before I left the house. Jake also mentioned he would be absent from early evening until night due to work. However, when I arrived at the office, the situation was different. The pile of documents that should have been stacked on my desk was neatly gone. At that moment, Kevin approached me. "Emily, you seemed tired lately, so I took care of it for you yesterday," he said. "Thank you." I hastily expressed my gratitude, and Kevin grinned and returned to his desk. Honestly, I had expected to work late again today, so Kevin's kindness was much appreciated. As a result, I didn't have to do any overtime, and in fact, since there was no other work left, I could go home a bit earlier than usual. Since I could get home early, I thought I'd make Jake's favorite stew for dinner. With that plan in mind, I arrived home, but something puzzled me. Jake's shoes, which should not have been there if he was supposed to be at work, were at the entrance. Thinking perhaps he had unexpectedly taken the day off, I was about to open the living room door when I heard Jake and Lily's voices and paused with my hand on the doorknob. It's been a year since we got married, so it's about time to say goodbye to this life. It really felt like forever. Please, give me a break. I just can't stand breathing the same air as Emily anymore. I was shocked to hear Jake and Lily's conversation from the living room. Say goodbye to this life. What could that mean? Their conversation was not something I could ignore. I quietly concealed myself and listened through the gap in the door, recording their conversation on my phone. My company's truck is really huge. If you get run over by that, you will be instantly gone. Everything is set, we just need the perpetrator to do their part now. Dad, you're evil. Well, there was never any love from the start. As long as we can live a wealthy life, that's all that matters. Anyway, she's so foolish. A guy like me meets her in a bar, and if you charm her a bit, she'll spill everything right away. It's funny you say that as you did this yourself. But hey, thanks to Emily being naive, we found out about her ample assets, right? Really, she's such an easy target. Lily's laughter, filled with words too mature for a high school student, echoed as they laughed hysterically. Their conversation was chillingly far from what you would expect from a family. I felt the hairs on my body stand up and ran from the scene in haste. Staying in that house any longer was dangerous. If the content of their conversation was true, I could be attacked by the perpetrator arranged by Jake. Shaking uncontrollably, I desperately thought about what to do next. After leaving the house, I went straight to a law firm to discuss my divorce. Fortunately, I arrived just before they closed. I asked them to proceed with the divorce and waited around until it was late enough for Jake and Lily to be asleep. I spent an uneasy time throughout, feeling my body trembling. When the night deepened, I quietly returned home. I was careful not to make any noise. With a firm resolve never to return to this house, I took only the essentials and went back to my parents' house. It was late, and my parents were already asleep, so I silently went to my room and fell asleep. The next morning, my parents noticed my presence. "Oh, you're back?" they exclaimed, obviously surprised. "What happened all of a sudden?" "What about Jake?" my father asked with a puzzled look. "Well, I played the recording of last night's conversation between Jake and Lily for my parents." As they listened to the conversation, their expressions grew increasingly grim. After they had heard everything, my father spoke in a low voice. "Let's go to the police." "Yes, the police. This is a clear criminal plan, it makes sense to report it," I realized. In all honesty, I hadn't been able to think clearly since the day before, and even this obvious course of action hadn't occurred to me. I had only thought to use the recording if there was a dispute during the divorce proceedings. "We'll go to the police." I agreed with my father's suggestion, readying myself to go. Just then, my phone began to ring loudly. Startled by the sudden noise, I trembled. Since I rarely receive calls outside of work, I was drawn to the ringing and stared intently at the phone screen. Jake. The caller was none other than Jake himself. He must have woken up and found all my belongings were gone. It was clear why he was calling. I exchanged glances with my parents, silently asking, "What should I do?" "You don't need to answer. There's no need for you to listen to anything that man has to say." My father firmly suggested not to answer, but even after the call ended, it rang again. We waited patiently for the ringing to stop, but Jake was persistent. He called repeatedly, changing the intervals every minute, every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes. "This isn't getting us anywhere," I said. "Maybe we should just talk to him once, convince him, and have him agree to the divorce," I suggested, and eventually, my parents nodded in agreement. Determined to regain a peaceful life as soon as possible, I answered the call. "Hey, Emily. Where are you right now?" Jake barked as soon as I answered, and I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. I turned on the speakerphone and placed the phone where my parents could hear. "Where?" "I'm at work." I lied as convincingly as I could, trying to keep my voice steady. "What? Work? Then what's this all about?" "I came home late last night, packed my stuff and left," I answered. "There haven't been a lot of arguments, nor have I cheated. So why suddenly talk about divorce?" Jake's frustration was palpable in his voice. Indeed, as Jake said, we weren't a couple known for constant arguing, nor was there any infidelity. It's natural that he would find it strange if I asked for a divorce without any apparent reason. However, Jake is the mastermind behind a plot with Lily to endanger my life. He must also be aware of the terrible treatment I have received from Lily. And yet, he had the audacity to claim he didn't understand why I would want a divorce. I looked at my parents. I could tell they seemed eager to say something. They probably wanted me to expose Jake with the recorded audio. I had thought about going straight to the police without saying anything, but being pushed this far by Jake left me no choice. The time had come to let him know that I was aware of everything. Gripping my chest as it thumped loudly, I decided to confront Jake about the events from the previous evening. "Let me clear up a misunderstanding for you," I said. "I know what you and Lily have been planning." "What are you talking about?" Jake responded with a shrug, but his voice was slightly trembling. Given this reaction, there might be a chance to elicit a confession from him. I felt like a detective cornering a suspect and continued. You said you came back late last night, but that was a lie. Actually, work ended early yesterday, and I got home around 5:30 p.m. To my surprise, I found your shoes at the entrance, even though you said you'd be at work from the evening. That could have been just a shift in your work hours, but we both know that wasn't the case, right? I methodically confirmed each fact with the tenacity of a predator cornering its prey. So what? And why are you lying about coming home early yesterday? Why all these lies? Jake's voice grew increasingly frantic over the phone. I felt a smirk forming inside as I crafted my next words. I thought you'd have figured it out by now, I continued. If you really can't imagine why, let me spell it out for you. Yesterday evening, I overheard you and Lily discussing a plan to kill me and take my inheritance. What? The air seemed to freeze as if Jake's breathing had stopped. He never imagined that I had heard his conversation with Lily the day before. But the reality was that I had heard everything. What are you talking about? Why would I think something like that? Emily, you must be misunderstanding something. It's true I was off work early yesterday and talking with Lily in the living room. We were just talking about her school, you know? Emily, haven't you been very tired lately? Why would I ever think of harming you, Emily? I love you so much. Jake decided to play dumb, brazenly lying in an attempt to manipulate me. But of course, I wasn't going to fall for that. I didn't want to hear his insincere declarations of love. It seems like you don't believe a word I'm saying. Well, I'll send you the recording right now, take a listen. I made sure to record your conversation yesterday. What? It seemed this took Jake by surprise, as I could hear his shocked voice on the other end of the phone. Without delay, I sent Jake the recording. It seemed Jake was listening to the recording because there was a long silence before he responded. But from time to time, I could hear Jake muttering things like damn and a why, so I smirked, knowing that I had finally confronted him with the evidence. See, I told you. That's the proof. I'm thinking of going to the police now. This looks like a pretty serious criminal plan. I'm going to tell them my husband is planning to kill me, so brace yourself. After listening to the recording, I calmly informed Jake. Wait a minute. The police? What are you thinking? Even if this data is real, I haven't actually done anything yet. Let's start over. I won't think of anything weird anymore. I'll make sure Lily understands too. She's always been rude to you, right? That's what's bothering you? I'll let Lily live alone or whatever. But I don't have the money to let her live alone. Damn. I was planning to say goodbye to this poor life with your inheritance. Jake seemed to have admitted his guilt, but he didn't seem to have any intention of apologizing. If there really was love, he would have thought of me first and acted accordingly. Ultimately, I couldn't see a happy future with Jake, who only thought about money. I had completely given up on him. Staring into my parents' eyes, I took a deep breath. Jake, who do you think you are? Trying to reconcile after deceiving me, and sulking when things don't go your way. How rotten can you get? And isn't Lily also there with you, Jake? Plotting all this instead of going to school, I can't forgive her either. Yes. I had also noticed what I thought was Lily's breathing on the other end of the phone. What now? Sure enough, Lily's voice came through on the phone, making my parents gasp. I understand if you can't accept me as a mother. But I can't agree with you talking badly about me to your friends and joining your father's criminal plans. I'm planning to report you to the police too. Be prepared. What? Why should I have to deal with the police? It's my dad's fault for being poor. What did you say? As the two began to argue, I sighed in exasperation. You're both so noisy. Anyway, you're both heading to the police. By the way, my parents are here too, so there are plenty of witnesses. I spoke more firmly than usual, and Jake persisted. Hey. Wait a minute. If you're going to the police, at least apologize here. That's right. You've ruined our future plans. Jake and Lily said something that made me incredulous. What? I couldn't help but blurt out. It seems these two are rather dim-witted. Finally, the anger bubbling up inside me exploded. Why should I have to apologize to you too? It's you who should be apologizing. Don't ever bother me again. Goodbye. Without waiting for Jake and Lily's response, I ended the call on my own terms this time. This was for the best, right? Yeah. You did well. I can't believe Jake turned out to be such a terrible person. Anyway, I'm glad you are safe. Both of my parents let out sighs of relief. Neither I nor my parents ever thought that my marriage would fall apart in just a year. But, honestly, there's no way I could have had a happy life with someone who was planning to take my life. It's a sad outcome, but it's better than the worst possible ending. I've decided to think of it that way now. Jake apparently filed for divorce and sent me a message saying we're divorced. The morning's call must have really gotten to him. Of course, I went through a lawyer to claim compensation for emotional distress. Sometime later, I received a desperate message from Jake. Since we're divorced, can we drop the police matter, please? I ignored everything and delivered the recording to the police the next day. Jake and Lily were quickly arrested for planning a crime, and they must be being questioned by the police now. Jake had said he would use the company truck to commit the crime, and that plan also came to light at his workplace. Moreover, he had foolishly discussed the plan over the phone at work, and a colleague who overheard it reported it up to his boss. I'm appalled at Jake's foolish actions, but I'm relieved that karma always catches up with those who do wrong. Jake, of course, was fired from his company. He intended to steal my inheritance and live a wealthy life, but now, he's forced to live an even poorer life than before. Having lost his job and being claimed for compensation by me. If he hadn't been so greedy, he could have lived a peaceful life. I hope he enjoys his living hell. Lily, who had already displayed bad behavior at school, was expelled from school due to this incident. I believe that was the appropriate response. It's unfortunate for Lily, who has no mother, but she's in high school and old enough to judge right from wrong. This should have been a good lesson for her that your misdeeds are always punished. I hope Lily reflects deeply while at the police station. As for me, I've decided to live at my parents' home for a while. I told Kevin at work about my divorce after a year of marriage. Really? Maybe it's because I pushed you into marriage too hard. Sorry about that. Oh, but maybe that means I have a chance now. He said with a smug look, which surprised me. But at the same time, I was thrilled to learn that Kevin felt that way about me. I was thinking of staying single for a while, but I've known Kevin for a long time and he's a kind-hearted person who cares about his subordinates. Feeling that it might be okay to slowly think about the future with him, I accepted his invitation for the weekend. I have no idea what the future holds, but the uncertainty makes it exciting, and I'm grateful to Kevin for reminding me of that.